Hey there, I am back. Thanks so much for joining me. I see Rich on today, and hopefully some other people will join. But I wanted to talk about Kontakt 8 here specifically because I've been working a lot lately, and I run into writer's block, as I'm sure a lot of people do. Plus, I invested a bit of dough in buying, the new version of Kontakt 8, and I always like to see what kind of value I can squeeze out of things. So there are three aspects of these tools in Kontakt 8 that I'm going to cover today and share what I've learned about using them in order to sort of get past writer's block on the one hand, but also just kind of have fun with maybe more of those sounds. If, like me, you have a big complete library, there's a lot of really cool sounds in there that are not in my normal wheelhouse that I want to be able to use. So this is, I think, a helpful way to sort of dive into maybe more of your library sounds, start working in a more broad range of music if that's something that you're interested in. I do production music, so I frequently am switching between something that's maybe cinematic or orchestral with something that's ambient or something that is, Latin based, or the constant switching up of genres and styles and instrumentation has taught me a lot about the different libraries that I have, but I think also there's a lot of room for making more discoveries. So there's three tools that you're going to see. There's the chords, the phrases, and then the most recently added is called patterns. I think Kontakt or Native Instruments published this very recently. I'm going to demonstrate for you how I use the chords, how I use the phrases, and then what I've discovered about the patterns. And there's a couple of really cool things about this. One is that a lot of it's drag and drop too, so you could drag it into Cubase or Logic or whatever DAW you're using, but you can also drag these melodic and harmonic ideas into Dorico. If you are a Dorico user, and that's where you do most of your composition, if you drag these elements into the key editor, I have found that to be the most reliable. I'll just kind of offer up that tip that if you drag MIDI into the key editor, then it seems to import fine. I've had a lot of problems where if I dragged it straight into a staff, that it would kind of work sometimes, and other times it would crash Dorico. I don't know what that's about. Maybe it's been updated. Anyway, let's break into this and take a look at how this kind of works. So I've got I'm in Cubase here, but mostly because I feel, I guess, at home working with this kind of tool. We're not doing notation, but you could, as I said, drag and drop these into Dorico. This is the paradigm. Think of these tools here, chords, patterns, and phrases, as being sets, especially phrases and chords. So when you go into chords, for example, and you see all these presets, my initial reaction was like, what are these? They're sets, they're chord sets. So if you go ahead and just open one up, you get these 7 chords, and for most composers, you'd be confident with the idea of 7 chords being, maybe the 7 diatonic chords of a major or minor scale. These are a little different. If you play the chords, the set is assigned to an octave, so starting on C, and you can actually see that down here on the keyboard. So you start there, that's just an octave higher, right? Different octaves. I do not think the voicings change. The voicings are implied within the chord. But as I play them, you'll also see right here what the chord quality is, right? So that's my first chord in the chord set, second chord in the chord set, third, fourth, fifth, and you can see in this graphic here which white key on the keyboard I'm playing before we get back to the beginning again. And you can also see the voicing over here, which is really nice. If you want to change something, like maybe this A Locrian type chord is not going to be that useful for me, and I want to have an E minor, then I can do something like that. And now I have an E minor over G chord held in that spot. So that record feature is really nice. Makes it very easy to customize this to individual chords if you want. You can also as I pointed out, you can easily drag and drop these chords. So you'll see this little sort of four-way indicator here. You can just drag that in, and you can even drag that up onto your chord track. And I found that you did have to drag it to a MIDI track first. I couldn't drag it directly to the chord track, but you drag it in there, and then you have the chord up in the chord track if you want to use that, for example, to drive these instruments. So using a chord set, what does it offer you creatively? In my view, it's just about having something that's playable on individual keys, so you can just kind of very quickly move around the chords. I'm not a good enough piano player to improvise chord changes, from my wildest imagination. I typically have very standardized voicings that my hands know. This helps break me out of that because it's very easy for me to just kind of go by ear a bit more. I'm a guitar player, for 35 years, but my piano skills are not at that level. It's been something I've developed more as a product of being a musician and a composer than it has been something that I've developed, with formal training. Let's take a look at phrases, and if anybody has any questions along the way, please do just post in the comments. In the phrases, it's a little bit different, but there are some common aspects. So I've just loaded up this stray light patch, and when you load up the phrases, it'll look like this. You see up in Kontakt 8, this is instruments. You can layer instruments. I'll talk about that a sec. But up here in the tool, you can come down here and select phrases. And again, this is a set of phrases. So if you load one up, you're basically getting a set of phrases, and you see a similar sort of layout here, right? You're getting 7 phrases, and depending on which key I play on the keyboard, I'm getting a little bit of static there, which might be a product of my sound card dropping out on me. Let me see if I need to. Yeah, got a very nice little buffer size there. I'm going to throw it up to 512 and see if that makes all those problems go away. There you go. I think we can all tolerate 15 milliseconds of delay. So when you load an instrument after any one of these tools, whether you're using chords or you're using phrases or you're using patterns, it seems like you can only have one tool, which sort of makes sense at a time. But when you load an instrument by default, the MIDI input is set to Omni. And if you load up multiple instruments, let's say, I was going to, I don't know, let's say that I just load in something off of Ethereal Earth. Oops, I didn't mean to do that quite. Let's go Ethereal Earth, and let's go with Conflux. I don't know this instrument very well, but now we have 2 layers, and they're both set to the MIDI input of being Omni is what I meant. So you can see if you wanted to hear just one, I could just solo Conflux. Now I'm hearing this pattern played through Conflux if I solo Ethereal Earth. So there's it's conducive, I think, to layering up instruments, which can be really fun. I want to point out also in the phrases tool here, there's this nice dynamic. So this is automatically tied to your mod wheel. And so I'm always on the lookout for things that are that I can use in automation in a cue or a track to just give it a lot more personality, make things evolve, have builds be more elegantly managed, that sort of thing. And being able to do that with the mod wheel just built in is really nice. Now, as you go through, you can change these patterns. You can lock certain patterns and then randomize, to pick different things. You can even click up here and you can choose either going through a sort of typical tagged sort of structure to find settings or navigating back and forth, or just selecting the dice, clicking the dice to get a random outcome. over here, once you're in this view, you can actually drag this over from that little icon. So I've got, you can see how if I use some of the keys on my keyboard, this is C, D, E, F. It's just going around the circle. With that one selected, I can grab this little icon and I can actually drag that phrase over here. And then you can see that it actually looks like it dragged all 7 phrases over here. So you can kind of see what they look like, and you can manipulate them, change them, modulate them, extract a bass line out of them, that sort of thing. Perhaps, let's see if I just drag, doesn't look like I can just quickly drag that, but oh, here it is. That's probably the icon if I just want this one pattern. So I might find, I just want that one pattern here, then I can drag that over here and it's preserved. So it's quite easy to go through, find elements you like, glue them together, layer up some instruments that maybe you're not as used to using. I never really use ethereal, earth, and conflex, but I know that I've got tens of thousands of sounds in my complete collection that are probably useful, certainly for some of the genres that I write. And the ability to pull up a chord set very quickly, I can certainly manipulate it and change it by using the record if I want to. But, I don't really want to probably if I'm using these tools. If I have a very clear compositional idea, I've got a motif in mind and I've got a harmonic progression in mind, I'm just going to go ahead and input that myself. But in the event that I want something new, or, I'm looking for more exotic chord voicings, it's nice to just pull up this Chords tool and pull up a sound. Could be a piano if I'm just trying to try out voicings and that sort of thing, but it could also be different textures and layering up a bunch of sounds from the Kontakt library easily to get a much more sort of hybrid texture. And then sometimes too, the way that a chord voicing might sound in a piano is very different emotionally from the way it'll sound in some really washed out pad in Stray Light or Arcus or something. So there's also that possibility for sort of dynamic response where it's not exactly what I'm expecting, but I'm going to get something that might be inspiring. And I've found this inspiring on multiple occasions. This phrase tool is nice for creating, in my view, the layers that go behind everything. So not a main melody, not a harmony exactly. I will actually just point out on the harmony front that you can go ahead and you can set a key on these chords and you can lock it so that these voicings are locked, say, to E minor. And then you can come over here and you can do the same thing and say, well, this is going to be locked to E minor. And then when you lock these, there's going to be continuity between whatever you do on the chords and whatever you do in the phrases, which is really nice. If you change your phrase sets from this area here, from this tool, then the chord lock will be maintained. Whereas if you grab something from over here in the phrases sort of browser list, it won't maintain that. So I've gotten in the habit of always switching up my chord sets or phrase sets by using that right there. The last one I want to look at is yeah, I see your comment, Rich, and yeah, setting MIDI input there. I imagine that might just be having to do with something about the way that I have these instruments set up, because I have in other situations seen set MIDI input available there, and you can actually choose. So my guess is that I need to change something in my setup. And I have not honestly really wanted to do that very often, in fact, ever, because what I've enjoyed about this process is layering up instruments and just seeing what they come up with. Again, I wouldn't use these tools because if I had an idea that I wanted to articulate, I wouldn't really use these tools. It's when I'm in a situation where I don't have an idea that I'm going to use these tools. Let me go into patterns and talk about that. This is the newest one, and I'll go and pick something, you know, fairly. Let's go with mallet instruments, maybe, and I'll go with sample based. And let's say clean, and oh, there we go, like that one. All right, so there it is. One cool thing actually that I discovered recently is that when you're in the library view, you can use this little pin, and if you pin that, it means that when you select something and load it, it does get loaded, but it's not going to change the view. It's not going to close out of this and go to that, which is really nice. Anyway, I don't want to do a tutorial on Kontakt as much as these individual items. So let's go back to Ivory Mallet. And I'm going to load up the patterns. Oops. Wrong one. Now, these patterns are not exactly pattern sets the way that phrases were a phrase set and chords were a chord set. These are slightly different. So let's just look at this very complicated pattern here and talk about what this pattern matrix really represents, because it's not that intuitive. So if I just, it is in its way, I don't want to discourage anybody, but essentially if I just hold down a C on my keyboard, I'm only getting variations on a C. So what will happen here, these steps are not inherently tonal. In other words, this is not necessarily a C, it's just the lowest note that I play. So if I play one C, this will play a C, this will play the C an octave higher, this will play the C an octave higher, and so on. So I get, while this C is coming down an octave, right? Whereas if I play C and E, now this will be a C, this will be an E, this will be a C. If I play a C, E, and a G, this will be C, E, and G, and C again. Oops, sorry, that was not a C major. Oops, neither was that. So that's a little, you know, that's a different paradigm, but one that I really like. This does not have the ability to drag and drop into your DAW, which to begin with had me kind of flummoxed. I thought, well, this is where I really want it. But since the notes that play back are dependent upon the notes that get input, it's not really possible for there to be a clear drag and drop MIDI solution here. So you'd kind of have this set up in your Kontakt instrument with the instrument sound that you want. And again, you can layer instruments over here as much as you want. But then, you know, whatever you put into it, you get a sort of a dynamic outcome. So if I were to play, say, a C major chord followed by an F major chord, you know, you can just have the chord progression feed into this pattern tool, and then you're going to get dynamic output. If you put in an F major or an F major 9 or an F7 chord, you're going to get something different each time. And that's really nice. I think that is, again, sort of inspirational in terms of offering up ideas. You juggle stuff around until you find things that you like. So I hope that that you know, is helpful to anybody else like me who's maybe, I know, Rich, you said earlier that you don't have Kontakt 8, but you know, maybe you'd find this useful. If you are somebody out there who's got Kontakt 8 and you're wondering how to use these tools, especially patterns, which is not as well documented right now because it's brand new, you know, I find these really helpful. They help me get kind of past that writer's block. I can come in with no ideas and start doing something on those days where I just need to get something done. I just need to get a piece made, which is fairly frequent, especially when I'm very busy and my creative energy starts to wane a little bit. If you have questions about this, if you have different experiences using the tools or creative ideas on how to use them, please post in the comments. Please let me know. If there's another aspect of this you'd like covered too, please let me know. I really appreciate everybody's support week after week on the channel. And I will be back on Wednesday. I've posted my schedule for this week, so I will see you guys then. And till then, I'll try and get to all the comments. See you on Wednesday. All right, bye.